Changing out the alternator on a Jaguar X-Type 2 litre diesel 2003 to 2009. I'm having trouble with my alternator, and it just happens to be in a really easily accessible place just down here at the back of the engine. So it looks like I've got to take a few bits off to get at it. I'll start at the top and take this cover off first. This is the cover for the turbo, and it's got a number of small nuts and bolts on it. Two 10mm nuts on the top, and then two rusty 8mm bolts that attach onto the turbo. One on the top here and then one on the side. They just easily come off. You can't see it, but you can easily feel it, and it's easy enough to get a spanner on it. Once that's removed, we can just pull it off. Now we can see the alternator a bit better. It's got a plastic protector on the back of it, which I also think it removes hot air from the back of the alternator or allows cold air to be pushed in. I don't know, maybe they designed it to have a pipe on. I think it's just to protect it from any water splashes and stuff at the back of the alternator. So we can take that one off. That's also got some little nuts on, so I'll reach down and do that with a little 1/4 inch wrench. They're also 8mm. Lift that out. That's better. We can see and get at the connections more easily now. Take the negative lead off the battery terminal and move it out of the way. The electrical connection's just clipped on. It's got a little tag that you depress at the side. You've got to be quite firm with it. It's about halfway on the clip to the rear of the alternator. I'll just try and show you the clip. It's just here. It's quite stiff to press. Detach the positive lead cable just here behind this shroud. It's a 10mm nut. Just be careful you don't lose the nut. It's a good idea to lift the cables up and away out of the top. They just need detaching from some little Christmas tree clips as you're going up. Break off the wheel nuts and then jack up the car. Put your axle stands in and take the wheel off. And I like to put the wheel underneath the car for a bit of extra security. If you go under the wheel arch, it's a good idea to take these two plastic covers off with some clips and screws, holding it in place. Once we've got those, we can just look underneath and you can see the alternator quite clearly. But first we've got to detach the track rod end, take off the 15mm nut, take off the nut, and you'll need a ball joint splitter for this. Just be careful of the rubber gaiter. Tighten that up. Move that out of the way. I can detach the anti-roll bar link. Move these cables out of the way a bit. Again, this is 15mm. You might have to use an Allen key in the centre if the nut keeps turning round. I'm quite lucky, I don't think it is. Lever down the anti-roll bar and gently take the link bar out. Now we can move that to one side to give us more space. Now you'll need some way of releasing the tension so you can get the belt off to then take the alternator off. I've got a tool here, but you could make your own. Distance between these pegs is 52mm, and then 200 to that bend, and another 200 to the end. And you need some kind of tool because it's really tight down at the end of the engine. You can't get a wrench on or anything, which is all behind these pipes, which I'll have to move out of the way a little bit. And to do that, I'm going to take the power steering pump reservoir out. There's just a couple of bolts on that, 10mm. I can move that, pull that off and move it out of the way a bit. I can hold it up behind this brake pipe. These cables are in the way a bit, so I can detach those. Got that little lugs that they're attached to. Just see if I can get the tool in. It's not easy to get the tool on because of all these pipes and cables. I think I'll take these cables off a little bit. They're just held on by some threaded clips. I'll just pull off with a flat bladed screwdriver. That's a bit better. Right, I managed to get it in. Here it is. I later found a better position for the tool, which was actually behind these cables, which I'll show you later on in the video. It goes down there, that's where the tensioner is. There's a square peg hole at the front and one at the back. See, it's quite narrow. You can't get anything on, only a special tool. And you could obviously make one. So you could do with a buddy to just take the belt off while you hold the tension back. But I'm on my own, so I found another method. So I got this little bit of wood. It's about 1 inch square. And it's just short of 9 inches long. And if I put it in here, pull the tension against the bulkhead, it's a tight fit. And that's ideal now. I'll leave that there now and take the belt off and then the alternator without having to bother anybody. There's just enough play in the tensioner released to get the belt off there. That's all you need to do is take the belt off the pulley. Now we can take the top bolt off on the alternator, which is behind this little metal tag, and on mine it's 13mm. Take that one out. And now do the bottom ones. These are fairly easy to get to. I'm using my 1/2 inch wrench for these. These are 15mm. Put the nuts to one side, and I'll just ease the alternator off the studs. Now to get it out, I think I have to take one of these studs out, which are a torque socket. See if I can get it out now. Might not have to take the second stud out, I don't know. Yep, it's coming out alright, no problem. Here's the alternator out. Now if you get a new one, you make sure the serial number's the same. I've just got a new second-hand one here, which I've been told is from a working vehicle. You might want to fit a new one, which is always the better thing to do, unless you're like me, a bit strapped for cash. Take this plastic protector off so I can get it in easier. I'm sure this should have a pipe on it. It's got the clips on. Right, I'll put this one on the car. Replace the stud. I'm going to have to jiggle it about a bit to get this stud lined up. Come on. Ah, that's it. Got it. Just tighten that up. Right, just orientate the alternator and lift it onto the studs at the bottom. Ah, it won't go fully back because it's still taking the tension off. The tensioner which pushes this spring forward, and the spring's mounted onto the alternator mount, which is also on the studs. So I just need to take the tension off now. Like so. Now I can push the alternator back and get the nuts on. Put the nuts on loosely, then put the bolt on at the top. And tighten all the bolts up. Take the tension off again. Replace the belt. Just slips over. Make sure it's fully on and seated correctly. Now we can release the tension. Take the bar out. Great. So as mentioned earlier, this is the better position to put the tool to release the tension. As you can see, it goes behind the cables here. And with the power steering out of the way, you can put your hand down and guide the pins onto the little slots. There we are, that's it. Hopefully that will save you some time. Reattach the electrical clip. It only goes on one way and it'll click into place. Now for the positive connection, you just slip that on and put the 10mm nut on. Make sure that's nice and seated and tight. Now before I test it, I better put everything back. Put these cables back on the spigots, put the power steering reservoir back, and it's all a bit of a fiddle to put it all back. I better not forget to put the plastic cover on the back of the alternator. So that'll protect it from water and heat. And finally the cover that goes over the turbo. With the little fiddly bolt right at the back. Now back under the wheel arch. Just bend the anti-roll bar down a little bit like this. Do the link bar, put that back in. Put the little bracket on and the nut. Put the track rod end in. Put the nut on. Then tighten them up to the correct torque. Slot the ABS cable back into place. And replace the plastic splash protectors with the little fiddly clips, which you might have to renew or modify, as it can easily be broken. Right, we're just about done. Put the wheel back on and we're going to test it. Start the engine, just raise the revs a bit. .95, nearly 14 volts. Perfect. Job's a good one. Thank you for watching. If you like this video, give us a thumbs up. It really helps out with the channel. Feel free to share the video, and if you haven't subscribed, consider subscribing. And I'll see you on the next video.